Okay, so I already actually had the first part of this video rendering and all that, but I had to stop it just because of the news that just came out. So, anyways, as you can see by the title, the entire staff of Kemono Friends just resigned after what has happened to the director that got fired yesterday by Kadokawa. But before I get into that topic, I want to start the part of the video that I discussed about an hour and a half ago and already had like edited and rendering, and then I'll get into this topic once again once that segment's done. So anyways, go back to past Chibi. So you remember the video I made yesterday on the director of Kemono Friends that got fired by Kadokawa, and it made the entirety of the internet, at least for the anime industry and the anime community, they got all upset, and it was just all the rage yesterday on Twitter, all forms of social media actually, just everybody was talking about it because it was just completely shocking, because Tatsuki, the director of Kemono Friends, if it wasn't for him, this series wouldn't have been as popular. Well, it was a big thing yesterday, and with today and all the backlash, Kadokawa and a couple others, they clarified what kind of happened and gave their viewpoint on what really happened. Now, there's some things here that wasn't completely explained. You gotta fill in the blanks here and there, but overall, there was much clarification that was given. Now, I just want to do a brief FYI, okay? I want to try to keep this as unbiased as possible, and then when I do get biased, I want to save it for the end of the video, okay? But I want to try to keep it unbiased for the first segment to kind of explain this story. So right off the bat, some news came out basically letting us know the reason why, you know, Tatsuki, the director of Kemono Friends, he was fired. So basically, he went out of his way and he made a special episode 12.1 that wasn't actually approved by the committee. And because of this, it caused a little bit of backlash and all that, and they didn't like how he went and did something without their permission. They got upset about it, and basically they got rid of him. And that's kind of what happened. And they didn't like it because as a company, when they have to organize things and all that, and they have to figure out future stories, novels, games, and all that, it's understandable from a company's perspective that if there's not proper communication and someone's going out of their way doing something without your permission, obviously it can cause problems. I can understand that from a company's perspective. Now, we also have to look at what the person made, the director, Tatsuki, what he made, and what was actually so important about this, and why Kadokawa got upset. So, the director, from what I'm hearing, he made, you know, an episode called, like, 12.1. It was a special episode, and he went out of his way, and he made something that, honestly, he really didn't need to make at the end of the day. He went out of his way, he designed the episode, he, like, pulled it out of his pocket, and is like, here you go to the fans of the series. And I also want to, you know, reinstate that he was the one that made this series so popular, because he had so much creativity when it came to this series. That's what made it blow up so fast, why so many in Japan loved the series, why it was like the #1 anime for a bit, is because of the director just leading the helm for the story. And this special episode that came out was done without the permission of the committee, but even though it was done without the permission, many of the fans really appreciate it because it was just something so special, and it just shows how much the director really cared about the series and the community, and he did it for the fans. It was for the fans when he did this, and so the fans were really happy and made them enjoy the series even more, but at the same time, from a company's perspective, they were upset because, like I said, if you go and do stuff without permission, obviously someone is bound to get upset, and that's what he did. So basically what led to this is he got fired, and even though it says that he stepped down willingly, that's what it states, it says he stepped down willingly, he technically got fired, because when it comes to Japan and their culture and all that, it's better to willingly resign than get fired, because being fired is actually bad. It's really bad on your record. I've seen enough stuff on this, even in anime, not just anime, but, you know, news stories and stuff, but basically, you know, in Japan, there's a cultural thing to where if someone gets fired, that really means a lot in Japan. It really means a lot. If you're fired, the next company that's trying to hire you, they're going to look at that like, why were you fired? And you might not get hired at all, and if you continuously lose jobs and stuff, and you're fired or whatever, you're not going to get a job whatsoever. It's a really big black stain on your record, and so you do not want to get fired. So even if you're at the point of getting fired, it's best to always resign. And so even though the company's trying to spin it and say he willingly stepped down, that's probably not the case. He got straight up fired, but the only option that was available to him was to step down or have a permanent record that would ruin his entire career in the anime industry. So it's understandable why he did step down willingly. But anyways, though, now that that's clarified, I want to get into a little bit more biased point of view of this article. So, overall, Kadokawa, as I said in my previous video, they've been known to do some extremely dirty stuff, like when they turned light novels into anime in like the 2000s era, and there was a bunch of anime that was all for season 1s and stuff that never got a continuation, never got a season 2, but they were really popular. Well, that was thanks to Kadokawa. They mainly wanted to make anime just to kind of be advertisement for the light novels, and they never wanted to do anything else with it. And they never wanted to make like a season 2 or a season 3. They just wanted to make one season just to advertise the light novel, and that's all they wanted. And they've done some scummy things in the past, especially with Haruhi. When it got really popular, they could have went much further with it, but they didn't, because Kadokawa did not want that. They wanted to basically make it to where there's just one season, and then the sales of the light novel would get much bigger. And this eventually led to the rise of KyoAni and what happened to KyoAni, because what made them put on the map was thanks to stuff that Kadokawa made them make, and then eventually they decided to turn to their own thing and make their own anime, their in-house anime, because of Kadokawa's, like, you know, ways they handled things. And so thanks to Kadokawa, they have done some crusty stuff in the past, and that's basically just the start of it all. And seeing something like this, I'm more inclined to side with the director, not just because he's the little guy in the story, it's just when you look at the track record of Kadokawa, they have done some really heinous stuff. And in this case, knowing how much the director really loved the series, he loved Kemono Friends, and he put so much effort into it, it's kind of like saying, you built this entire structure, this is your child, this is your baby. Now, after spending so many hours on this, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, I want to rip you away from this, and you're no longer allowed to even be near, or even work on this ever again. But even though you put so much effort into it, you made it popular, you made it to where we're making money, I want to separate you from this because, you know, I didn't like how you decided to use, you know, your creator freedom and do what you wanted. I don't like that, because I want to have the control of the series. I don't want you to be able to control it at all. And that's basically how it looks in this situation. Kadokawa wanted to control the series. They didn't want anyone else to have control, and basically they got really upset with the director, and now he's been forcefully removed. Personally, if it wasn't for the director, Kemono Friends wouldn't have been as popular. It's just in the discussion. That is in the discussion right there. If it was not for him just working on it, putting so much effort with it, communicating with the fans and all that, it would not have turned out to be as good as it was. It's only thanks to him why it became so good and popular. And now with Kadokawa basically just ripping him off the series and all that, I highly doubt Season 2 will have any form of essence like, you know, Season 1 did. For instance, it will not be the same whatsoever. Now, like I said, even though I haven't personally seen the series, I have heard a lot about the series, and I understand that. I heard a lot about it, and I know for a fact it probably deserved all the praise it got, and just seeing this, it's really sad overall. I feel like Kadokawa did the man dirty, and it's just messed up how, you know, some companies are, and I know they're trying to spin it around to make it look like he's at fault and all that in some ways, but that's, as always, when I see stuff like this, all I can think of is how he's the little guy in this situation, and since Kadokawa is such a big company, they can get away with whatever they want. For instance, they can do whatever they want, they can say anything because they have more money, more backing, and since they have such a larger voice compared to the director, obviously, you know, they can just kind of brush him under the rug like it's nothing, and they can carry on and do what they want. So they're kind of doing damage control for the most part, trying to make it look like the man's fault, even though it might not be his, because a lot of companies tend to do this. They try to make it look like it's the little guy's fault in the situation, even though they're probably really at fault or half at fault, but they try to make it look like someone else's fault 100%. Okay, so now that I've got that first part out of the way, I'm going to be extremely biased here, because this is just, whoa. So, you know how I just said that the director, you know, he got fired and all that, and I think it's kind of dirty from Kadokawa to do that to a man that put so much soul and passion into a series? Well, apparently, the entire staff that was working on Kemono Friends, like everybody that worked on Season 1, they just resigned. They straight up resigned. They're like, we're done, we're not doing it. They did that to back the director that got forcibly removed from his job, and so the entire staff resigned in support of the director, which is, it's pretty ballsy. I gotta commend the staff. It just shows that how much they realized that the director put so much passion into it, and they realized, like, if it wasn't for this man, clearly this series wouldn't be this popular. And so it's kind of wonderful to see that they're willing to back this man, but at the same time, though, it's kind of worrisome, because number one, Season 2 has been greenlit, and so that would mean that Season 2, it's definitely not going to be nowhere near as good as Season 1, especially after this. Especially the entirety of the staff just resigning. Season 2 is dead already in the water. It's done. But the thing is, though, is with everybody resigning, this is actually going to hurt them quite bad. But, I mean, like I said, it's, you know, it takes a lot of courage to do something like this, but it's going to hurt them in the grand scheme of things. I actually kind of worry about the individuals that just resigned from the staff, because everyone that just resigned, it's going to be hard for them to probably get a job in the anime industry, because after this, how they just all resigned at once and all that, just to back a director, and since this is a very, very big news story right now, like, it's really big to where Kadokawa has to damage control, this is probably going to make some companies never want to touch these certain people because they're fearful that they'll just do this again and resign and all that, and they'll lose, you know, anything they can for a possibility of a series or a season 2 or whatever. So I actually feel kind of bad for the individuals that just resign, because it's going to be hard for them to get another job. The only way I can see them getting out of this now is if they actually create their own anime studio and then they work on their own anime. But when it comes to Kemono Friends, it's obvious now after what just happened with the entire staff just, you know, resigning and now the director been fired and all that. It's very obvious that Kemono Friends is done. Like, it's done. It's done. They will never be able to touch it ever again because Kadokawa basically has the license to it. And so, they'll never get to touch it. But at the same time, though, I wonder how hard it's going to be for them to find a job. So, I wish them the best of luck. It's ballsy to do, especially in support of someone that got fired. I mean, they didn't need to do that. They didn't need to, you know, put their neck out there and, you know, try to support a dude. They didn't need to do that. I'm actually very shocked, you know, they were so compassionate to do something like that for the man, just to show that Kadokawa was wrong. And just like, holy crap, I really hope that there's a company out there that actually, you know, hires them, hires the director, hires the entire staff to work on something, because clearly it's a very talented staff. They work together as a unit, as a team, and they're not out for themselves, and it's definitely something that you don't see a lot nowadays, especially in companies. Even if it's your friends, sometimes people throw each other under the bus just for they can further themselves up the, you know, corporate ladder. And so seeing how they all risked themselves just for this man, it shows that this man definitely was a good person, and he was definitely a person that showed that he loved everything about the series, and that is why they're backing him. So, just, wow. Kemono Friends, entire staff just resigned. Whoa. Okay, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this news? How do you feel about the reveal of this? I mean, it's obvious now for a staff to do something like that. Kadokawa was definitely in the wrong, and they're definitely trying to be, like, you know, damage control mode, make it look like it's their fault. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.